Advancing the scientific and scholarly study of aging and promoting human welfare in all areas of gerontology, the core missions of GSA. This week, thousands are gathering in Austin, Texas to present, learn, and find new collaborations at the GSA 2019 Annual Scientific Meeting. Join us as we cover one of the largest and most interdisciplinary annual meetings in the world for gerontology. We are GSA Spotlight TV. Hello and welcome back to another episode of GSA Spotlight TV. I'm your host, Leslie Rohde. We hope you've been enjoying our coverage so far. We have all new interviews for you today from this annual meeting here in Austin. Now, here's a preview of what's ahead.
On the mentoring committee, that's something that gets worked on across the year. We think about the different kinds of opportunities that students need, not students, but students, faculty, junior scholars need to be able to progress in their careers.
Yes, so our charge as a committee is to promote and increase the visibility of minority aging issues in gerontology among the society.
Like a couple of our journals, it is pretty broad, but it is non-disciplinary. So it attracts material from across the wonderful breadth of diversity that GSA has.
We formed last fall, a year ago. We are at Maine's premier health sciences university. We have the only medical school in the state, and it's a really great place to do work on aging.
We begin with an interview that really emphasizes this year's theme of strength in age, harness the power of networks. We speak with Dr. Keith Whitfield. We're glad to be joined now by Dr. Keith Whitfield, who is chair of the Mentoring Committee and also co-director of the Technical Assistance Workshop. Welcome.
Thank you, Leslie. Good to be here.
Tell us what you've been doing on the Mentoring Committee.
On the mentoring committee, that's something that gets worked on across the year. We think about the different kinds of opportunities that students need, not students, but students, faculty, junior scholars need to be able to progress in their careers. And so we try to create a programmatic format. Our biggest thing that we have is a Friday morning, very early morning, consultancy where they can kind of do speed mentoring and talk to lots of different people about career issues, about grants, about publications, all the things that face scholars that are coming up through the ranks.
What are you doing looking in the future with that committee?
I think with that committee, in the past, not too long ago, we actually created a fundraising campaign, and I think we need to do a fundraising campaign again because it actually costs money, one, to be able to run some of those activities, but two, which was done with the first iteration, was to be able to provide additional activities. So the committee ends up being kind of a jumping off point for others in the society to be able to do other mentoring activities. And so if we can support that, I think that's something that we should do in the next few years, is have another one of those to have some additional funds, because it's kind of an unfunded mandate at the moment.
But needed, so I understand that.
Desperately needed, yeah.
Let's talk about your other role here, co-director of the Technical Assistance Workshop. For those who understand, most people will know what this is among your peers, but tell us what that is and what your role is with it.
Well, it's interesting. The Technical Assistance Workshop is something that the NIA actually offered, I don't know, years and years ago, and then there had been a kind of a hiatus from it, and I think a number of us who had actually benefited from the Technical Assistance Workshop, I was in one back in the 90s. It was really one of those launch pad kinds of activities that really helps get you grounded, creates peer networks, and I think what's interesting is that now in the social media, social networking age, it's even more important. So we've designed it so that we can kind of capitalize on what the 21st century scholar actually does, what they do and how they connect with one another for a lot of the junior people, because this goes from people who are in graduate school all the way up into very early assistant professors, people making that transition. Be able to provide them with experiences from more senior investigators to really talk about, planning your career, of thinking about what it means to do publications, how do you work with your mentor, a lot of very, very practical sorts of things. It's an extension of and connected to the mentoring consultancies, but different because we tend to have a much more focused group. We try to make sure that it's an extremely diverse group. Whereas the mentoring consultancy, it's basically come one, come all. This one is one that people apply for, and we actually provide support for them to get to the meeting. It's funded and sponsored by a grant from the National Institute on Aging. They're everywhere. And so we're able to actually even help financially students to be able to get here, young scholars to be able to get here, and to talk about some of the most pressing issues.
Tell us how your peers here, all gathered here for this annual meeting, might be able to help in the mentoring world, in your realm.
Well, I tell you, that's one of the things that makes my job and my participation easy, is that this is one of, I've been a member of several professional associations, and as I become a more senior scholar, this is the one that I stick with because mentorship is front and center. It's on everybody's mind. I think that we have a very collegial, we're an interdisciplinary program. There's not just one single discipline. And I think with that, it's interesting. We could be very siloed, but we actually end up being very cooperative and very collaborative. And so bringing around junior people is one of the things that's most important. Actually, as you walk through the hallways of this meeting, you will see little mentoring consultancies going on everywhere. And so it's, I think, a hallmark for the association. It's one of the things that makes us great, makes us strong.
Dr. Whitfield, thank you so much for the information.
Thank you, Leslie.
It was great to speak with Dr. Whitfield. Now, in addition to having the opportunity to interview some of the most prominent people at this year's meeting, GSA Spotlight TV is also featuring a few of the institutions doing innovative things in gerontology. Here's a look at what we're profiling today.
We are at the Texas A&M Center for Population Health and Aging. We are a research institute that focuses on the health of older adults and actually improving the health across the life course to be able to help older adults, their caregivers, their care networks to better meet their needs, live longer, healthier lives.
There's an old adage, if you don't have your health, you don't have anything. Helping people do the best they can at older ages is an important goal for us as a society, for physicians, and for health researchers like us.
My name is Lotta Granholm Bentley. I'm a professor in biology, and I'm also the executive director for the Nobel Institute for Healthy Aging at DU. We call it KIHA for short.
We are on the top of the engineering building with facilitate and promote collaboration with engineers.
There's a pervasive attitude about aging as a single process of decline, but the truth is that aging is actually a very complex, rich story, a rich process that includes growth and development as well as decline. We're really familiar with how our bodies change over time, where maybe we can't do the things that we used to be able to do, but there's also tremendous amounts of growth that we have. That's not a part of the story that we tend to talk about.
The mission of the Fordham University Ravison Center on Aging is really to empower social workers and other healthcare professionals to make a difference in the lives of older adults, family members, and all generations. And what we do is we partner with many different agencies on different projects, and also working with students, faculty members, and community members to effect change.
For our first profile, we head to New York.
The mission of the Fordham University Ravison Center on Aging is really to empower social workers and other healthcare professionals to make a difference in the lives of older adults, family members, and all generations. And what we do is we partner with many different agencies on different projects, and also working with students, faculty members, and community members to effect change.
It creates synergy that makes a very unique opportunity for us to develop knowledge and develop practices and further our understanding of older adults and their families.
As we know, the older adult population is the fastest growing segment of society. Age 85 and older are growing faster than any other part of society. So we felt that this was very important to look at the Ravison Center to help older people prepare as they age to talk with their physicians, their nurses, their social workers, to gather the information about how they could improve and keep quality of life in their health.
The Carter Burden Network collaboration with the Fordham Ravison Center on Aging is a wonderful opportunity for us to help educate our seniors about how best to communicate with their healthcare provider. We know that this is a very important aspect of overall health and wellness. I can say that the feedback we've received from our seniors has been overwhelmingly positive. They're always looking for ways to improve their overall health, but more importantly, it can help to empower them to be better advocates in taking care of their own health.
So another program we work on is palliative care, and we have the Palliative Care Fellowship at the Graduate School of Social Service, which is one of very few in the entire country. The Palliative Care Fellowship has a number of components. The heart of the fellowship is the internship that the students do, and they do this with experienced palliative social workers. They're working on inpatient palliative care teams in hospice, in oncology, long-term care, pediatrics, and then they take 2 courses, palliative social work and grief, loss, and bereavement. They meet with a career mentor throughout their fellowship year and in the year after to help them really strategize their career and to get that career going. There are a lot of patients out there who need specialty palliative services, and there's not enough trained social workers in the workforce to meet those needs. So this program is intended to contribute to that workforce.
What is important to look at is understanding outcomes. And in doing this, outcomes have to be measurable. And what we try to do in our research within the communities is helping agencies and organizations how to look at the change that they're desiring and how to see if it's really affecting change.
In my role as program director for Westchester County Department of Social Services, a federal grant called Westchester Building Futures, I spearhead along with an amazing team of researchers, direct service professionals, and community-based advocates, a grant that focuses on serving young people in foster care ages 14 to 21. Really, our purpose in the grant is to really think about ways in which we can improve outcomes for young people in care, really through the lens of youth, voice and choice, and equally importantly, family engagement. So that is, we're really working with all members of the family, from the grandparents to the younger siblings, and working with Dr. Jana Heyman, who's our principal investigator, and her leadership at the Ravison Center has really been a great partnership with the Westchester County Department of Social Services.
We train our coaches to help our many thousands of caregivers here in Westchester County to better care for their loved ones. The coaches are trained by healthcare professionals, so we have social workers, we have nurses, we have geriatric care managers that train our coaches.
The Ravison Center is really working on diverse caregiving initiatives. My own research is looking at long-distance caregiving. You know, we find that the average live 500 miles away. We have some caregivers in our sample that are international. And so we're trying to understand what the challenges are for them and what kind of services can support them in the role. And we work with the Ravison Center in terms of dissemination.
The Ravison Center is a great training ground for our students to learn about research, learn about understanding connecting research to social work and social work practice and policy, and they get them ready. That integrated approach is a real unique aspect of the Ravison Center.
I did 2 internships. So my first year I was able to work with high school students and gain more of an administrative experience. Whereas my second year, I kind of went to a different level and did more clinical work, working with older adults, and which also gave me a nice introduction to the Ravison Center, which is where I'm able to kind of put all that into use.
One area in particular that resonates with me is their focus on minority populations. And so one of the areas that they've started to explore a bit is looking at LGBT health and trying to focus in on the needs of LGBT seniors and how do you promote resiliency and positive health outcomes among the elderly population.
And what's critical is that we don't just do the research, but we replicate the research, and then we see what works in practice and how not only do we take that practice, but what we learn from it, the lessons learned, and how we can affect that change, not only in the practice and the research, but in future policies and future policy decisions on a larger basis in communities, statewide, nationally, as well as internationally.
We're glad to be joined now by Dr. Suzanne Meeks, who is the editor-in-chief of the Gerontologist. Welcome.
Thank you.
Tell us about the journal, the Gerontologist.
Like a couple of our journals, it is pretty broad, but it is non-disciplinary. So it attracts material from across the wonderful breadth of diversity that GSA has. So we do lean towards the social sciences, but we are not exclusive to the social sciences. We value humanities and the arts. We have psychology. We have some medical science. We've got some policy work in there. It's a very broad interdisciplinary journal.
Something for everyone in interest areas, for sure.
Yes. It's also very applied oriented, so there's an expectation that whatever people are publishing there is both good science and relevant to actually helping people's lives.
That is great. What articles have been in the journal lately that maybe a lot of people are talking about or that you're most interested in? Can you give us some examples of those?
So talking about the one that comes to mind is there are actually a couple that have been very high on the attention list, sort of media attention list and so forth over the last few years, which have to do with pets. People get very excited when we publish things about pets. People are very committed to their pets, and we have had a really nice paper it's been a few years, it's not recent actually, that came out on dog walking and the health benefits of dog walking. But we have a much more recent article that's just coming out, I think it's just online, on the benefits of pet ownership in bereavement and how having a pet may mitigate some of those costs of bereavement for older adults.
I can see that. That's comforting to have a pet there as you're going through that process.
That's right.
For sure.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What about some trends that maybe you're seeing that you're looking at writing more about?
Well, we're seeing a lot of material starting to come in on technology. We actually did a special issue on technology last year that has been really interesting. So a lot of people are doing work on technology. It's just starting to hit the journals now, I think, on how technology can enhance the lives of older adults. So I'm seeing a lot of that. I'm seeing a lot of exercise work that I would like to see more of.
In what way? What exercise?
Well, so we all know exercise is good for us, right? And so there's lots and lots of work about exercise is good for that and exercise is good for this. And so what I want to see more of, I think, is sort of understanding the pathways and the mechanisms, and also, and I think a lot of people are starting to do this work, how exercise can, how people can adapt exercise and keep it in their lives as they get older and more frail. So just sort of we know it's great, and mostly that we use that for making us feel guilty, instead of figuring out ways to build it into everyday lives across the lifespan.
Yeah, at any age, for sure. Are you taking submissions, or do you continually take submissions?
Absolutely. We take submissions all the time. That's one of the joys of my job, is that my computer is always reminding me that there is yet another submission to look at, which is really fun because I love to read them. But yes, we get about, let's see, this year we might hit 1,000 submissions a year. And we're very encouraged by the interest in the journal. We are actually going to put out a call for a special issue coming up fairly soon on workforce issues in long-term care, which I think is another trending area, really important. We know that there's a crisis in people who care for older adults, especially formal caregivers. There's definitely a shortage there, and so we are looking for good science about how to fix that problem, how to understand that problem and fix that problem.
And I guess you just submit online
Right.
that way, okay?
Yes.
If people would like to do that.
Right.
Anything else that you would like some of the folks here at the conference this week to know about your journal?
I guess I should plug our other special issue, which should be coming out in the spring on immigration and aging. And we have a lot of papers already accepted on that, so they should be hitting us online shortly. So look for those papers. They're really interesting. They're from not just from the U.S., from across the world, looking at various aspects of immigration and aging.
All right, Dr. Meeks, thank you very much for this, the editor-in-chief of the Gerontologist. In our next profile, the National Social Life, Health, and Aging Project research study at the University of Chicago aims to add to our understanding of healthy aging. Here's a deeper look at their work.
There's an old adage, if you don't have your health, you don't have anything. Helping people do the best they can at older ages is an important goal for us as a society, for physicians, and for health researchers like us. The National Institutes of Health have made it a focus to understand aging and disease.
The University of Chicago is unusual in that it has, as part of the university, a major social research organization, NORC. Most of NORC's work has to do with executing large federal data collection contracts. But it also has a tradition since its founding of collaborating with academic investigators to carry out academic research. And we value this collaboration with NORC as one of the great contributions to NSHAP and indeed to the execution of social science research.
The National Social Life, Health, and Aging Project is a study of older adults and healthy aging. NSHAP, as we call it, began in about 2000. This project was designed to understand how the social world affects other kinds of health and how other kinds of health affect the social world. We've discovered findings that were completely unexpected, that have changed the way we think about some relationships, some dimensions of health, and occasionally have changed medical care, medical practice, or policy as a result.
Among our investigators, we have statisticians, we have sociologists, we have physicians, we have psychologists. It brings together different ways of looking at the human condition.
My name is Louise Hockley, and I'm a senior research scientist.
I'm an epidemiologist.
I'm a statistician.
I'm a professor of medicine at the University of Chicago.
I'm particularly interested in women's reproductive health.
I focus on urban sociology.
I'm a professor of otolaryngology, head and neck surgery here at the University of Chicago. Because the sense of smell system is very closely tied to brain function, we thought that as it declined, it may signal problems in our bodies and our health. So we looked in NSHAP to see whether sense of smell at the baseline assessment could predict mortality 5 years later, and indeed it did. Strongly predicted mortality, much stronger than major diseases like heart disease and cancer and COPD, which we know are really big predictors of mortality.
I'm Kate Cagney in the Department of Sociology at the University of Chicago, and the focus of my research is urban sociology, specifically neighborhood social context and its implications for older adult health and well-being. What we were able to do is to find some external data, particularly on the foreclosure crisis, and look at what difference it made that people lived through that period of time. And one of the things we were able to identify is that when people lived in neighborhoods with high rates of foreclosure, they developed depressive symptomatology over that interval. So it's important to note that these are not people who said that they felt depressed in wave one of our data. They really developed depression over the period. And it's not that they experienced their own foreclosure, they were surrounded by a social and physical circumstance where, neighborhoods became depopulated and resources became scarcer.
Because of my exposure to NSHAP, I pay more attention to how individual patients' social lives affect their health. You see that the isolated older person doesn't do as well. And you see families that are rich in social network that are able to keep someone healthy who otherwise wouldn't be healthy. As a doctor, you actually see the role of the social world on people's health, and it's quite gratifying. And so you see it in clinical practice, and then you go back to NCHAP and you say, can we find other connections between the social world and people's health?
One of the special focuses of NCHAP is on sexuality, on sexual behavior, sexual attitudes, sexual practices, satisfaction, and we've really been the leader in understanding sexuality and its implications at older ages.
One of the most important things about NCHAP is that we go to people across the whole country, all regions of the country, all socioeconomic classes, all races and ethnicities, and that we select the sample in a scientific way means that we, when we get our results from NCHAP, can generalize these to the whole population.
We distribute our data through the National Archive for Computerized Data on Aging at the University of Michigan. NCHAP was also one of the very first studies to participate in NACTA's new data portal project, and you can query and do basic analyses with the NCHAP data set right online, together with a number of helpful materials.
I think if any of us could pick one thing we wanted as we get older, we'd pick good health. Helping people achieve that goal, helping our society do everything it can to improve the health of older adults is good for us as individuals, it's good for families, and it's good for the society as a whole.
We're really happy to be joined now by Dr. Adrienne Aiken-Morgan. She's the chair of GSA's Minority Issues in Gerontology Committee. Glad you're with us today.
Thank you.
We want to know a little bit about what the committee's been up to.
Yes, so our charge as a committee is to promote and increase the visibility of minority aging issues in gerontology among the society. And so for many years, we've been really focused in our programming at the annual meetings and throughout the year in doing just that. Our annual symposium this year is focused specifically on strength in creating diversified spaces in education and research. And so this symposium theme was intentional in connecting us to AGI, which is the education organization who has officially joined GSA as one of our sections. And we've been really excited to not only focus on traditional research topics in minority aging, but then also include issues that are more connected to education, which many of us are educators as well as researchers.
Interesting. So what do people in gerontology in your field mostly need to know about some of these issues that you've been working on, the most pressing issues?
So for myself personally, my research examines the influence of social and health factors on cognitive aging and dementia risk among African American older adults. So my research is really within the minority aging realm. And so most recently, I've been very fortunate to be funded by the National Institute on Aging, a Diversity Supplement Award with Dr. Lisa Barnes, who's a cognitive neuropsychologist at Rush University Medical Center at their Alzheimer's Disease Center. And we are looking at longitudinal relationships between adiposity, which is obesity essentially, and how that impacts cognitive decline and dementia risk in African American elders. And so ultimately, my goal is to understand these relationships better to be able to make an impact on minority aging at large.
How can GSA members help you with your work?
Yeah, so I think that we need to, again, kind of aligning the goals of our committee as well as some of my personal goals in the work that I do, I think we have to make at the forefront, promoting minority aging issues, health disparities issues in gerontology. We know that as the older adult population grows, the minority older adult population will increase even more so. And so I think within African American, Latino, Hispanic populations, and many others, Asian and Asian American populations, we need to be able to understand how certain health and social issues impact those groups as they get older.
I understand that you have recently participated in the National Institute on Aging's Butler Williams Scholars Program.
Yes.
For those people who may not know what that is, can you tell us about it and what you did there?
Right, so Butler Williams is a summer institute that's hosted at the NIH campus in Bethesda, Maryland every summer, and it was a really phenomenal experience for me. I think this past year a lot of things culminated for me in terms of getting funded, but also being able to be invited to other opportunities to really push my research forward. And so this was one of those things that was just really a great experience. And essentially what it is, a diverse group of junior scholars, postdocs, as well as junior faculty from around the country, through a very competitive application process, we're invited to the NIH campus for a week-long training session. Many different talks, research presentations were given, but also a lot of networking opportunities, which I think for me, as someone who maybe is a little bit more reserved and has a harder time kind of getting out there, going up to someone that you don't know, introducing yourself, being able to become a part of this, what is really a family of Butler Williams scholars, that just really opens the door to kind of some of those conversations that I may not otherwise spark up on my own. And so, getting face time with NIH program officers as well as other officials, that was just really invaluable, and I think will pay off in the future.
I was going to say those connections will be long-lasting, hopefully, in your career and research there.
Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Adrienne Aiken-Morgan. We appreciate all of this information.
Thank you very much.
Now to Denver and the Nobel Institute. It's focused on preventing rather than curing age-related neurological disorders. They do so partly through their unique interdisciplinary structure.
My name is Lotta Granholm Bentley. I'm a professor in biology, and I'm also the executive director for the Nobel Institute for Healthy Aging at DU. We call it KIHA for short.
We are in the top of the engineering building with facilitate and promote collaboration with engineers.
I think it's quite unique for a center on aging to be located in an engineering building because we can focus on prevention.
There is a lot of bouncing of ideas, when we meet in the hallways, and so that's what I like a lot about KIHA. Everybody can talk to, like there is no like, oh, you're the boss, and there is nothing about that.
Every research group here, all the 10 people that are gathered at the Nobel Institute, they are ahead in their field.
My lab in particular is looking at different metabolites as a biomarker, and we're doing progression of the different neurological conditions, in particularly Parkinson's and Alzheimer's disease, and now most recently ALS. We can develop algorithms with engineers that actually allow us to do prediction in the condition, but also early diagnosis.
I've been working on the biology of aging since 1974. I got one of the first grants that the National Institute on Aging ever gave out to do this work. And the work that we did that was funded by that grant led us to the hypothesis that people with Down syndrome age prematurely. About 80% of them will develop dementia of the Alzheimer's type by the time they're 60. And since the life expectancy of people with Down syndrome is going up and up, they represent, therefore, the largest genetically defined population that we know is at risk for Alzheimer's disease in the world.
What I decided to do early on is to link with other researchers, and now we have 10 different sites that are focused on bringing in brain tissue samples and bringing in blood samples from people with Down syndrome of different ages. And so it's a unique opportunity to see what happens when they're 10, when they're 20, when they're 40. What are the things that are preceding their dementia symptoms.
In this institute, we have expertise both from chemistry perspective as well as from biology perspective. So we have really a good critical mass to pursue that kind of research.
We have several different studies ongoing and several collaborations with neurologists as well as neurosurgeons looking at Alzheimer's, looking at concussion, as well as looking at Parkinson's disease. And so those kind of clinical collaborations are great because then we can actually do translational science. So things that we find in the lab that maybe work in cell culture models or mouse models can then progress to the clinic.
I collaborate with the Nobel Institute for Healthy Aging, and my research is on applying machine learning and artificial intelligence as well as robotics to help people with mental disabilities such as Parkinson's disease, Alzheimer disease. People with dementia, oftentimes they are depressed, they are lonely, and because of the shortage of caregivers in senior living facilities, we use these social robots as a companion bots.
That was amazing.
I'm so happy to do all these.
Even though we are a research institute, we're also focused very much on outreach and on impact in society.
One of the programs that I'm really proud of that we did last fall was a collaborative project between the University of Denver. So we work with a photography professor here. He brought his class of freshman students to one of our community partners, Kavod Senior Life. They're an affordable living community for older adults, and they created this book that helps develop these social support systems for older and younger groups as they kind of go through life together.
Another exciting interdisciplinary project is the financial security project that we have. It involves both faculty and students from the law school, from business school, from social work, from psychology, and from the Nobel Institute.
There's a very significant connection between financial decision-making and cognitive function. That connection is essentially stemmed from research that we've known about for 10, 15, even 20 years. So these early markers, subtle markers in financial decision-making, can appear decades before we'd notice anything.
When we started the Nobel Institute, when I came here, we changed the name from Center for Studies of Aging to Healthy Aging. And that is key for KIHA, if I may say so. We think that the interdisciplinary groups we have here are able to touch on many aspects of successful aging. And it's quite unique to have that breadth of interest and to have these kind of unique research groups who can touch on all of these different aspects of aging. So I really think we will make an impact in society.
Now we want to highlight a department focused on disrupting ageism. For our next profile, GSA Spotlight TV heads to Virginia.
There's a pervasive attitude about aging as a single process of decline, but the truth is that aging is actually a very complex, rich story, a rich process that includes growth and development, as well as decline. We're really familiar with how our bodies change over time, where maybe we can't do the things that we used to be able to do, but there's also tremendous amounts of growth that we have. That's not a part of the story that we tend to talk about. So we have a singular focus and a singular story of aging, and that's what needs to change. The Department of Gerontology at VCU is a combination of an academic unit and a social movement all rolled into one. We have the only Masters of Gerontology program in the state of Virginia. We have a post-baccalaureate certificate in aging studies, and we have a dual certificate with School of Pharmacy and School of Social Work. We also have the only assisted living accredited administration program in the nation. Being a VCU gerontologist is different because we have two foundational principles that we use and that we embed in all of our research, our service, and our teaching. Those principles are disrupt ageism and aging into elderhood.
We tie together research, teaching, and engagement by ensuring that our research infuses what we teach in the classroom. So we have done research on ageism and on elderhood, and these inform the ways that we teach and what we teach in the classroom to students. Students have opportunities in the classroom to practice disrupting ageism and to explore the idea of elderhood as a distinct life stage. And then they have opportunities to practice these in the community through community placements and through work opportunities.
We consider community engagement or community outreach to be a part of all of our academic mandate. In the community, mostly what we're doing is focusing on dismantling those existing systems and disrupting those thoughts that exist about ageism. I've seen really wonderful impact from the Longevity Project from our Age Wave initiative. Part of that is about workforce development. As we've mentioned, this notion of focusing on social connectedness has given us the opportunity to think very strategically about how we want to engage people across all sectors. But mostly, I think it has been about connectivity and connecting agencies and service providers that wouldn't normally be talking to each other. But if our goal is to promote longevity equity, we need to make sure that those groups are connected.
The department is interested in elderhood and ageism, and I've implemented them into my health behavior change research. So I do health behavior change and health promotion. So the idea of health promotion is basically improving people's health, not in the clinical setting, but in the community setting, empowering them with knowledge, I empower them with skills, and then I empower them with support to create health behavior change, or improving their medication safety by telling them about interactions that happen in the medication. I provide them value and support just to tell them that it's okay to change your health even in late life, because it'll help you improve your quality of life for many years to come.
Senior living has had quite a lot of growth and development over the recent years, but unfortunately it's still perceived as an industry that is characterized by poor quality of care. In addition to that, there is an issue with access because it's very expensive, and so we have this sort of expectation that we need to go into poverty in order to access some of these long-term care services and supports. The Aging Services Network fills gaps where individuals have needs. So, for example, if someone has a need with food insecurity or housing or healthcare. And in addition to those direct services, they provide a level of advocacy at the local, state, and national levels, addressing issues related to access and equity.
This isn't just about our current population of older people, this is about all of our future possible selves and how we think about our future possible selves and how we think about each other.
Everybody has to find their own way of disrupting and find the courage to be able to do that in day-to-day social interactions, which is in fact where most ageism occurs and is perpetuated and recycled. It's the less disruptive thing to do to let it pass, but if we want to stop it, we do need to disrupt it.
The future of aging looks bright. We are in the midst of a longevity revolution. We have never in the history of the world lived this long and been this active, involved, and healthy. Technology has really created this longevity revolution, and we can only benefit from that. So the Department of Gerontology at VCU is dedicated to pushing the envelope on changing the narrative of the single story of aging is decline, and to educating students to create environments that are more person-centered, more inclusive, and more equitable.
We're happy to be joined now by Dr. Tom Muser from the University of New England, where he is the founding director of the Center for Excellence in Aging and Health. And I understand this is a somewhat new center.
We formed last fall, a year ago. We are at Maine's premier health sciences university. We have the only medical school in the state, and it's a really great place to do work on aging. We can address issues of health and wellness, but we can also look at the larger policy issues with respect to aging.
What types of things are you studying, are you looking at there at the center?
We're an applied research center, so we're looking at answering questions that relate to people's daily lives, how they live, successful aging in place. Maine is a national leader with respect to the age-friendly community network Maine has over 100 age-friendly communities. These are grassroots efforts with some national structure where local individuals form committees to support older adults to age in place successfully. So it's really a great state to look at aging well.
Understand. Why would a university, though, create this center, a center like this?
Well, it comes down to a donation.
Okay.
There was a long-standing interest in forming an aging center, and a real visionary donor to the university saw an opportunity for her to really make a difference and leave a lasting legacy. So I have the good fortune to be the steward of that fund and to invest it to grow what I consider sort of applied, impactful research on aging.
For what I understand about Maine, you have an interesting story there about your demographics there, and how Maine can teach all of us in the rest of the country some things about aging and health.
Maine is the oldest state by average age, so our average population age is 45. Maine's demographics are also similar to what the United States as a country will be in 2050. So 21% of our population are 65 and older, 18% are 19 and under. So the squaring of the pyramid is more advanced in Maine. We also are one of the most rural states, so 61% of our seniors live in rural areas. So we can, I think, address in Maine issues that relate to the country now, but also in the future.
So other states also could learn from Maine.
I think other states could learn a lot from Maine.
And what you're doing. What do you want your peers to know about what you're doing there at the center and what might be important in the future of your work?
So our tagline is advancing inclusive, narrative-informed, and outcome-oriented research on healthful aging. Inclusive, not just the different professional perspectives, but the actual beliefs and needs of older adults themselves and their families. So I'm very much interested in participatory research where we're addressing questions that matter to real people. Narrative-informed relates to the fact that I think even the most quantitative of study can benefit from having real stories of real people, because it normalizes, it makes it something that can be applied and translated to their needs. So that's the basics.
And translated to everyone else as well, so that we understand the great work you're doing there. Thank you so much, Dr. Tom Muser of the University of New England. Charting the future of healthy aging, Texas A&M's Center for Population Health and Aging is dedicated to promoting population health and successful aging through innovations in research, education, and practice that examines social, behavioral, economic, environmental, and technological solutions linking academic and real-world clinical and community settings. Take a look.
We are at the Texas A&M Center for Population Health and Aging. We are a research institute that focuses on the health of older adults and actually improving the health across the life course to be able to help older adults, their caregivers, their care networks to better meet their needs, live longer, healthier lives.
What I do here is really to work to promote aging is something that happens within our center, within the university, within the state, and then nationally and globally. So I really work to have people understand how it is that we can make healthy aging the new normal.
We focus on the practice of actually being able to bridge that gap between campus or academic with the community by providing programs within the community that are what we call evidence-based programs. And these programs that were formed within a community but provided in the community in small group settings where, as long as there is an adherence to the fidelity of the program and the structure of the program, then the results will have a long-lasting effect for the participants of the program.
Here at Texas A&M, we have had a partnership for almost 20 years, a little short of 20 years. We've been partnering together to better serve seniors, to help our seniors become educated, informed, and to be active in their community. The professors as well as the students here assist us in the community, cover more area, address more issues, and to serve more individuals. We don't have the staff to go out to the different senior centers and provide educational programs. Programs like A Matter of Balance, our chronic disease self-management program.
The research really breaks up into many different focal areas. So one of our biggest focal areas is understanding about community and worksite wellness. Or another area is understanding geriatric care. What are the conditions that you associate with aging? So research that we do around Alzheimer's disease and dementia. We're also interested in healthy communities. How can we build healthy communities for aging? So we actually are working in communities here in the Brazos Valley as well as in Austin.
We see remarkable results. It's interesting because people that you don't really think would be interested in the class come back and really do a 360-degree turnaround. It's amazing what you do with a little bit of encouragement and support. When people come back to you and really ask you questions one-on-one, you get remarkable feedback from them, and they express their concerns, they express their questions, you answer their questions, and then they go and do remarkable things. They come back with weight loss of 20, 30 pounds. Their A1Cs are much more manageable, and they really have better overall health.
The best part about these evidence-based programs is that they are effective. And another great aspect is that they reach hundreds and thousands of lives each and every single year. But the problem is that we have millions and millions of older adults who need these services. So as effective as they are, there needs to be dissemination and implementation efforts to grow and reach and sustain these programs so that they can meet the needs of vulnerable populations.
The biggest challenge to success for these kind of programs is the integration of the programs, and to understand that things that are so simple and can be done well and inexpensively can have a huge impact for them, whether it's reducing those healthcare costs, improving the health of people, even reducing the burden of the healthcare professionals. So it's getting them to the table, but once they come to the table, they're completely on board.
The outcomes for these interventions, these programs are extremely effective. They have been shown to prevent injurious falls and related deaths, but they have been shown to increase the efficacy, the confidence that an older adult can prevent a fall and manage a fall if one does occur.
Our mantra in this center is active for life. It's active for life, everyone, every age, every day. We believe this is the way that we will make healthy aging the new normal.
That's it for today. Thank you so much for watching. We'll have much more coverage from the annual meeting here in Austin tomorrow. See you then.
Thank you.